I never imagined the woman I once loved more than life itself would look me dead in the eyes and say, "You won't really divorce me. I know you too well." And maybe once that was true, but not anymore. Because while she was busy reuniting with her first love, the one she claimed she had moved on from, his ex was holding on to a love she'd never dared confess for me. Let me back up. My name's Ryan, and up until a few months ago, I was a devoted husband. Faithful, steady, boring even if you asked her. Her name was Elena. We had been married for 3 years, and together for nearly 5. She was the kind of woman who made heads turn when she walked into a room, not just because of her beauty, but the way she carried herself. Graceful, confident, dangerous. And me? I was the quiet kind. The type to memorize her coffee order, hold the door open, and still get nervous before every anniversary dinner. I thought she appreciated that. Until I started noticing the signs. The long phone calls and hushed tones. The sudden smile she'd try to hide when she read her texts. The way she started dressing up again different from how she did for me. And then came the day that cracked everything wide open. I walked into the cafe earlier than expected. She hadn't noticed me. But I noticed him. Zion. The so-called friend from the past she swore meant nothing. Her first love. The man who left her heart in pieces 10 years ago and now was piecing it back together over coffee and laughter while I stood frozen behind a glass wall. She said it was just closure. She said she was confused. She said she needed space. And in all that chaos, in all that heartbreak, I didn't expect the person who would hold me together was Zion's ex-girlfriend. Isla. Quiet. Observant. Always on the sidelines. She was supposed to hate me. I was married to the woman who took her man. But she didn't. Instead, she said one thing that changed everything. If Elena doesn't see your worth, Rayon someone else already has. That's when the game changed. That's when I stopped being the man who begged to be loved and became the man she never thought would walk away. For most of my life, I was the kind of guy who loved quietly. No grand gestures. No dramatic declarations. Just little things, a hand on the lower back when crossing the street, remembering the stories she told me in passing, noticing when her laugh didn't quite reach her eyes. That's how I loved Elena. And for a while I thought it was enough. We met in college, when she was still healing from her past with Zion. I knew about him. Everyone did. He was her great heartbreak, the one that taught her love could burn more than it could warm. But I wasn't intimidated by that, because Elena, when she was with me, wasn't broken. She was soft, curious, a little cautious, but brave enough to try again. We started as friends. The kind of late-night conversations that bled into morning, arguing about movies, walking back from campus just to get coffee we didn't need. I liked the way she thought deeply, how she took her time before trusting anyone. And when she did trust me, it felt like the world opened up. 3 years later, I proposed. It wasn't a grand affair, just us on a quiet beach she loved, her favorite song playing from my phone speaker. She said yes with tears in her eyes and whispered, "You make me feel safe, Rayon. Like I can finally breathe." And I believed her. For the first few years of our marriage, things were good. Not perfect, but real. We built a life together, small apartment, late-night grocery runs, shared dreams. We even started talking about kids, about traveling, about buying a house near her mother. But slowly, something shifted. She became distant first, subtly, then like a wave pulling away from the shore before a storm. She stopped telling me about her day. She smiled at her phone more than at me. I chalked it up to stress, work, routine. Maybe we were just in a lull. But deep down, I knew. There were silences that stretched too long, touches that felt mechanical. And when she said, "I'm going out to meet a friend from college," my stomach twisted before I even knew why. I should have asked more questions. I should have paid closer attention. But I loved her. And love, as I knew it, meant patience, understanding, giving space when someone needed it. What I didn't realize was that she wasn't asking for space. She was reaching for someone else. And in that spaces, someone unexpected started to enter my world. Isla. I met her only a handful of times once, at a wedding where Zayn brought her as his date, and once again at a mutual friend's dinner party. She was quiet, polite, but her eyes always seemed to be searching like she was observing everything and saying nothing. She never tried to compete with Elena's presence, and that made her even more unforgettable. I didn't think much of her back then. But sometimes, fate watches in silence, waits for the storm, and sends the person you never expected at exactly the moment you begin to drown. It started with a name I hadn't heard in years. Zayn. I was brushing my teeth one morning when I heard Elena's voice from the living room. She was on a call she didn't know I was up yet. Her tone was light, warmer than I'd heard in months. She laughed. Laughed. Not the polite kind she gave me these days, but the real one. The one that used to make me fall for her all over again. I stepped into the hallway, trying not to make a sound. "I'm glad we reconnected," she said. "It feels natural." My chest tightened. I didn't confront her that day. I told myself I was overthinking. Maybe it was an old friend, a short catch-up call. No harm in that, right? But Zayn wasn't just anyone. He was the chapter she never fully closed. The if only in her life. The man who broke her heart but left just enough love behind to linger in her shadows. The next week, she began dressing differently. She started wearing perfume again, the one she used when we first met. The one she stopped using years ago because she said it gave her headaches. And her phone? Always face down. Always on silent. I pretended not to notice. Until one night, her phone lit up when she was in the shower. I shouldn't have looked. But love makes you do things you're not proud of. "Zayn, tonight felt like old times. I miss that version of you." I stared at the message, my mind blank, my mouth dry. When she came out of the bathroom wrapped in a towel, she noticed the look on my face. You saw it, didn't you? No lies. No denial. No excuses. Just calm, calculated admission. I waited for her to say, "It's not what you think," or "He's just a friend," but she didn't. Instead, she said, "Rayon, you've been good to me, but I don't feel the same anymore." Just like that. 5 years of love. Laughter. Promises. Reduced to a sentence. "I need to figure out what I really want," she added. That's when I realized she wasn't confused. She was gone. I moved out of her bedroom that night. She didn't stop me. For the next few days, I walked around like a ghost in my own house. She came home late. Sometimes I didn't hear her at all. We stopped speaking except for the occasional polite request, like, "Can you pass the salt?" The silence was louder than any argument. But the twist? It wasn't her betrayal that broke me. It was who showed up at my door 3 days later. Ayla, Zayn's ex. I opened the door, confused to see her there, holding a small envelope and a strange look in her eyes. "I thought you should know," she said softly, handing me the envelope. Inside were printed screenshots messages, voice notes, from Elena. To Zayn. Plans, secrets, things I hadn't even known yet. Ayla's voice didn't tremble once. "They've been meeting for over a month. He told me she was just a ghost from the past. I wanted to believe that." She looked up at me then, her eyes not angry but tired. Resigned. I guess we both know how that feels now. For the first time in my marriage, I didn't know how to breathe in my own home. Every corner held memories, but now, every memory felt fake. Every picture on the wall felt like a cruel joke. Our wedding photo mocked me the most her eyes were shining in it. Were they ever really shining for me? Or was I just a placeholder until he came back? Ayla's envelope sat on my desk like a loaded gun. I hadn't even read every message inside. Just enough to know the truth. Enough to feel the burn. He said, "I never smiled the way I used to until I saw you again." That's what Eleanor wrote to Zayn in one of the texts. That line played in my head on repeat. I wanted to scream, smash something, cry. But all I did was stare at the wall, numb. I hadn't felt this empty since my father's funeral. I kept thinking, did she ever love me? Or did she just love how safe I made her feel until her heart wandered back to danger? For days I said nothing. I slept on the couch. I avoided her eyes. I lived like a stranger in the house I helped build. But the questions kept eating me alive. Why didn't she just leave? Why pretend to love me? Why marry me at all if her heart still belonged to him? Every answer I imagined hurt worse than the last. Then one evening, she came home late again, her hair slightly tousled. Her lipstick faded but fresh enough to know she reapplied it somewhere between goodbye and my front door. I couldn't hold it in anymore. "You were with him, weren't you?" I asked, voice quiet but shaking. She froze, her tease still in her hand. "Rayan, don't do this. Don't do this?" I laughed bitterly. "You already did it." She looked away. "I didn't plan for this to happen," she whispered. Zion just came back, and when I saw him, everything I'd buried came rushing up. I tried to ignore it. Tried? I scoffed. "Is that what those late-night calls were, you trying?" She rubbed her forehead. "I didn't mean to hurt you, but you did, and you kept doing it." Her silence was louder than any apology. That night, I sat outside in the cold for hours. Isla's voice echoed in my head from the day she came over. He told me she was just a ghost from the past. I wanted to believe that. How ironic. The same lie. On both sides. The next morning, Isla texted me again. "Isla, you okay?" I stared at her message, thumb hovering over the screen. She didn't owe me anything, yet she was the only one checking in. The only one who wasn't pretending. Me, I don't know what I am. "Isla, same. If you ever need to talk, I'm around. For what it's worth, I'm sorry." I didn't reply. But something about her reaching out stuck with me. Later that week, I sat alone in my car outside our favorite restaurant. The place where I once surprised Elena for our anniversary. The place where she laughed so hard she cried because I forgot to remove the price tag from the bouquet. That woman Elena felt like a ghost now. I went back home and watched her set the table like nothing was wrong. As if she hadn't already emotionally walked out the door. I couldn't take it anymore. "You don't love me anymore, do you?" I asked bluntly. She paused mid-step. Her mouth opened, then closed. She didn't answer. And that was my answer. I nodded slowly. "Then why are we still doing this?" "I don't know," she said, voice cracking. "Maybe I was hoping you'd fight harder. That you'd remind me why I fell in love with you in the first place. Why should I fight for someone who's already standing in someone else's arms?" She didn't respond. And just like that, the little hope I had left disappeared. Just when I thought things couldn't break any further, fate handed me another knife. It was a Wednesday evening when Isla called me this time with panic in her voice. "Rayan," she said breathlessly, "I need to meet you. It's important. It's about Zion." I hesitated. Did he do something? She paused. Then her voice dropped. "He proposed to Elena. Last night." My fingers curled around the phone, knuckles turning white. "What?" "He told me he's going to announce it this weekend at a dinner. He wants to make it public, clean, quick. But I couldn't process it. Elena and I are still married." "Exactly," Isla whispered. "That's why I'm calling." My breath caught in my throat. It wasn't just emotional betrayal anymore. It was a full-blown plan. They were ready to throw away everything. Quietly. Neatly. Like our lives were just drafts they could erase and rewrite. I met Isla at a quiet cafe later that evening. Her eyes looked tired. But there was something else in them too, something I hadn't expected. "Why are you really helping me?" I asked. She took a deep breath. "Because I know what it feels like to love someone who's already let go of you. And because you deserve to know the truth." She pulled out a USB drive. I didn't want to believe it either. But Zion's been lying to both of us. I plugged it into my laptop that night, alone in my room. It was all there. Photos, chats, voice recordings. But one voice note stopped me cold. It was Elena's voice. "He doesn't suspect a thing. I've kept everything quiet. I'll push for the divorce next week. Rayan's been too passive. He won't fight it." My jaw clenched. So that's what I was to her now? Passive? Not someone she loved. not someone she respected. Just a stepping stone to her new beginning. I stared at the screen, heart racing, fists trembling. That was when I heard the second part of the voice note. Her voice dropped to a whisper, "But sometimes I wonder if I'm making a mistake. Rayan's never hurt me. He's always been there. Zion, he's chaos, and maybe I need that. Maybe I'm addicted to it." She paused and added, "But if I stay with Rayan, I'll never know what I missed. And I don't want to wonder for the rest of my life." That was it. I finally understood. She didn't leave me because I lacked love. She left me because I gave her peace and she craved storms. She wanted fire. I gave her warmth. She wanted fireworks. I gave her stability. And now, she was running straight into the arms of the man who once burned her down. But here's the twist she didn't see coming. Isla? She wasn't just helping me. She had been in love with me for years, and I had no idea. The night of the dinner arrived the night Zayn planned to announce his engagement. I was there, hidden in the shadows, watching everything unfold. Elena was radiant like a queen stepping onto a throne that wasn't hers. And Zion? He looked smug, like he had already won the game. My phone buzzed quietly in my pocket. Isla, it's time. I stepped out from the shadows. Rayan? Elena's eyes widened when she saw me. Her smile faltered for the first time in months. "Why are you here?" Zion asked, his voice cold but curious. I didn't answer. Instead, I held up my phone. "I know everything," I said slowly, my voice steady but burning inside. "Your plans, your lies, your secret meetings." The room went silent. Elena's eyes flicked to Zion, and in that moment, I saw fear. "Rayan, you don't understand," she whispered. "No, Elena. I understand perfectly," I said, voice rising. "You left me for him. You wanted passion, chaos, something I never gave you. But here's the truth you forgot." I pressed play on the voice note Isla gave me. Her words filled the room, raw and unforgiving. Zion's smug smile disappeared. Elena's face turned pale. When the message ended, I looked straight at her. "You were never just caught between us," I said. You chose. You chose to use me as your safety net until you could jump back to him." Elena's lips trembled. I didn't mean to hurt you. But you did." Suddenly, Isla stepped forward from the crowd, her voice steady. "I loved Rayan," she said. "More than you ever did. More than you ever could." Heads turned. Gasps echoed. Zion's eyes narrowed. "Isla, what are you doing here?" "I'm done watching this destruction," she said. I came to tell the truth. The room was thick with tension, every breath heavy. Elena looked crushed, like the weight of her choices finally caught up. And me? I finally felt the fire I thought was gone, the fire to reclaim myself. I didn't want to be the man she walked away from. I wanted to be the man she regretted losing. The room was still. Elena's eyes filled with tears, but it wasn't the remorse I expected, it was fear. Fear of losing control, losing the carefully built lies. Zion clenched his fists, face tight with anger and humiliation. Isla looked at me, her gaze steady and calm. For the first time in months, I felt seen and not just as a husband betrayed, but as a man worth fighting for. I turned to Elena one last time. "This isn't just about us," I said softly. "It's about who I want to be from now on. Not a man tied down by lies. Not someone who waits for someone else's love." Her tears fell freely now. "I'm sorry," she whispered. I was selfish. I nodded, feeling a strange peace wash over me. "You were," I said gently. "But I'm done carrying the weight of your mistakes." Then I walked out. Outside, the cool night air hit my face, sharp and refreshing. For so long, I had been suffocating in a world that wasn't mine anymore. But now, I was breathing again. Isla joined me. "I never thought I'd see the day you walked away," she said quietly. "I almost didn't," I admitted. She smiled, and for a moment, the past pain seemed miles away. Maybe, she said, this is our chance to start fresh. No secrets, no regrets. I looked at her, and something inside me stirred a new hope. Not a rebound, not a replacement, but a new beginning. I knew it wouldn't be easy. Trust isn't rebuilt overnight. And love, well, love is complicated. But I was ready to try. Because sometimes the people we lose aren't really lost. They're just waiting for the right moment to come back. And sometimes the ones who truly love us are the ones we never expected. That night, as I walked away from the past, I realized this wasn't the end. It was the start of something real.